Sure.
Okay, I'm here with Lao, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Tao of love and see where we go today. So it's been a while since we've spoken, and actually, I think the last time we talked it was pre-C19, which is the virus that shall not be named. I've missed you. Are you doing okay?
You know what? I can't complain. I'm pretty damn happy no matter what. So it's yeah, I'm happy. It's good.
Good. Yeah, we've been through a lot, and maybe we'll discuss some of that a little bit. But today I want to talk about. I want to start off with talking about something that that actually we were leading up to, and we'll because we talked the last time we talked about Han and Po, and then we talked about the three treasures.
Right.
So I want to talk about love. I know it's not your favorite word. And I know you have no opinion on it whatsoever, but if you could cough something up for me, for my viewers, so that there might be something we could talk about today, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
So I want to start with reading, just as a sort of a mental prompt for you. This is from, I don't know if I ever showed you this book, the Truth of Tao. It's by this guy. His name is Alex Anatoli.
Yeah,
yeah, you know him. You know.
Fox spirit. Yeah, Daoist.
The fox spirit. Yeah, and he actually lives out here in this area, and I met him one day. I think I may have told you about it. It was quite an exciting ordeal. So, and then part of it was because I read his book and I wanted to. We had a whole conversation about it, but anyway, I wanted, this book really was curious for me because it was a different kind of book that I've ever read in terms of Taoism, and it's a compelling title, right? The Truth of Tao, right? But I thought this was interesting, and I had never really read this quite before. So this is a quote from Lao Tzu, and it says, "The first treasure, the first is love." Lao Tzu's first treasure, love, has been so misrepresented by translators and philosophers that its common definition is now an absurd concept, totally inconsistent with Taoism's philosophical core. And I'm not going to say what the Chinese character is, but well, I will. It says, unfortunately, it has been resulted in a number of conflicting translations, which is from love to simplicity and benevolence of others. In determining the correct explanation of any of Lao Tzu's writings, the practicing Taoists always turn to its application in reality. A correct interpretation or understanding is validated only by practical application, while an incorrect interpretation becomes obviously false upon intellectual or physical application. Using this method, it quickly becomes clear that translating the first treasure as love is blatantly erroneous. But Lao Tzu says at the conclusion of the Three Treasures poem that love is vicarious in attack and invulnerable in defense. It is clear that the common interpretation of love is wrong. I love your face right now because I can just see the wheels turning in your head. No survivor of any physical conflict would claim that love is the secret weapon to victory. Ask any combat veteran, police officer, or victim of a vicious crime if love is the key to survival. The absurdity of this notion is obvious. Using intellectual persuasion to turn victory through love into a valid life principle is a folly on par with fantasy or the blind faith of religious dogma. Love is a powerful emotion, but one that plays an important role in human existence, but it will never be taught at West Point. So what did Lao Tzu mean when he wrote of love as the first treasure? And I'm going to let you answer that.
Okay. It is misunderstood. And the reason why is if you try to understand Lao Tzu with a Western mind, it's never going to work. It's like me trying to understand midwifery. I got the concept, but I don't have the concept.
You have been a midwife though twice.
I have. And while I'm great at the technical aspects of it, basically the women said throughout, almost everyone, could you just shut up for a minute? Just
That sounds about right.
shut up. And I realized oxytocin is not released, which then allows.
Isn't that weird? Not during the process.
Right. So oxytocin is released when you go to a dark, warm place, and you feel safe and you guarded, right? So all mammals run to known ground in a dark place. And we instead, humans, we're so smart, we put this big bright light on the hoo-ha and make it 67 degrees. We have this big lumberjack come in turkey base with the fingers to see. It's no wonder we have to use chemicals to induce. Anyways, not important. So yeah, so there's a state that's got to be in for that oxytocin. All right, so let's talk about how the Eastern mind works first. Okay, so I grew up, as you remember, with 2 Chinese, 2 Tibetan, 2 Thai, 1 Laotian, 1 Cambodian. Okay, so there's no pan-Asian way of looking at the world, but there are ways of dealing with perspective that are pretty standard, although they've got their own interpretation. So let me give you an example. Love. Einstein said that love was the very thing that held the universe together. Now, obviously, he's not talking about Neptune looking at your Saturn lovingly being like, I want you. No. Or the Kuiper Belt sending asteroids to just pelt the face. No, that's not love like that. It's that intense attraction, right? So like electromagnetism, gravity, these things that just, my revolution is in yours and we're inextricably linked, right? This is the idea but Westerners like to romanticize things. And Chinese, not the most romantic. No, Lao Tzu and Rumi will never be mixed up, in fact.
That's quite true. Was Lao Tzu married or did he have relations?
We don't even know if there was a Lao Tzu, to be quite honest. It means old master, but it could have been old child, old children, old masters. We think his name was Li Er. He was a 80-something-year-old former court historian who just was like, I'm out. And he heads to India for whatever reason. The Daoists used to like to screw with the Buddhists and be like, well, I hate to tell you, but when Lao Tzu left and went to India, you called him Buddha. Look, I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but you're all just bastardized out. It used to make them so mad.
They don't like that, do they?
They're like, no, Buddha was, of course he was.
So let me interject a question upon my other question.
Sure.
In terms of the worldview. So from the worldview, because this does have a little bit to do with love, okay? Mm. Buddhists and Taoists. Mm. So is this world physical or is it merely mental?
It's both. They don't make the distinction, right? Dualism isn't a thing, right? They want to get rid of dualism. They want to get rid of samsara. They want to get rid of Maya. And the Maya is that it's an illusion. So it's neither physical because that's impermanence, although it's physical because it's impermanent, right? But everything has its state. And so when you look at this worldview, it's not easy because the West doesn't start with a 0. They start with the number 1. There's a God created, blah. That's all the traditions. So God's one. And then it goes. Taoism, Buddhism, Jainism, they start with 0. In the beginning, there's nothing. And then nothing gives birth to the 1. And that to a Western logos is like, how can nothing give birth to something? It's like, this is why it's called the Great Mystery. And you can experience it for sure. In fact, Harvard scientists, when they took a vacuum, they noticed that all of the molecules, the electrons and the quarks, they were slamming together, trying to form something in that vacuum. So something was trying to give birth, nothing was trying to give birth to something. So, but this is an idea that comes out. Now, So let's look at the idea of Buddhist and Taoist version of love. Okay, and I'll get to specifically what Lao Tzu means. To a Buddhist and a Taoist, love has little to do with self as the primary recipient of it. Now, some people, of course, take this to the Western, like, so they're just selfless and live for other people. No, they know that they can't get their own needs met if they're not actively in the process of helping others meet their needs as well, right? Asian societies are typically collectivists. Taoists are uniquely individualistic, but they can't escape their cultural milieu. And so they have this idea that while I have to walk my own Tao, and the Theravada Buddhists in the South have this very idea too, like you can't ask for intercession from some bodhisattva to make, clear your karma. You can't do that. You got to work your own crap out. But
so Christian savior is not a Taoist ideology.
Yeah, no, because the Tao to a Taoist, sin is an anathema. There's no sin. What's sin? What is that? You do what you do because it's what you do. Somebody may not understand what you do, but that's because they're not on your path. You're on your path. Now, does that mean that you have a license to do whatever you want? No, but it does mean that you don't have a right to judge. And this is where Christianity does conflate, is that you don't have a right to judge someone else. To be including yourself, you have to come to understand your nature. If you want to understand someone else's nature first, then you'll see that their decisions are completely reasonable. This would be an example of love. So you've got to, so let's say I've got students all over the world, right? And I talk to them, and one's in Cyprus, and one's in Germany, and one's in the Philippines. I can't deal with them the same way. They all need something very different. It doesn't matter what I need. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks of me. It doesn't matter. What matters is am I helping these people to get what it is they need? And that's a very different thing for a Filipino versus somebody from Istanbul. Very different things. True love starts off with understanding that you must do the best for the situation, regardless if that's pretty, it makes you feel good, it goes in alignment with what you want. It doesn't matter. It's a very difficult thing because...
But it's not necessarily always giving somebody else what they want.
No, it's what they need.
Right.
It's what they need. And so you can be completely loving to somebody and tell them to go get fucked. You can be absolutely loving to them if that's the best thing for them. You say, I don't want to. Well, then you don't understand love. Love, let me give you this in the terms of psychological. There's significance, and significance is about me. I need to matter. And then there's another one of the needs, which is called contribution. Contribution is not about me. Contribution is what the situation needs. So when people say, well, it seems difficult to kind of figure out which one is which. No, it isn't. It's very simple. If you do something and you need to be known for it, that's about significance. If you do something you don't care whether you're known for it or not, that's about contribution. It's a very simple thing. Both have its place in love. But truly, to love somebody, you've got to be able to do what's necessary in that moment. For example, if you have a dog, and let's say you love this dog with all your heart, but it gets hit by a car, and you know there's no way to save this dog and it's in a lot of pain, what do? You have to put the dog down. That's what most people would do. Why? Because you love that dog enough to understand this is its best. This is the idea of love being, because when you follow the way, it's very difficult for some people because they think the way is benevolent. The way is not benevolent. They think, oh, I don't want to follow it because the way is
one of the words here. It says love, simplicity, and benevolence. So,
but love is not benevolent. It can be benevolent, but it can seem quite malefactory as well. Because if a person wants, for example, if you're helping a person dry out from a heroin addiction, they're not going to think you're the nicest person in the goddamn world while their skin's crawling off them and they're going through the DT. They're not. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But do you know that's the right thing to do? Yes. Teaching your children accountability, teaching your children to accept the word no, teaching your children to use their imagination, to use their born faculties versus plugging in and just having some machine run them externally. It's not easy. And children, my friends and all, you know what? You're going to have to be the bad guy. But if you love your children, you understand that. Love has nothing to do with what you like or don't like or what the other person likes or don't like. That's where you get this idea that when people identify love as that, no, that has nothing to do with the Taoist worldview. Because I'll tell people things that just makes people cringe, like, you would say that to another person? Yes. Why? Because that's what they came to me for. That's what they're here for. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, don't you think you could have said it nicer? No. They've been talking nice to this dumbass their whole goddamn life. And this is why they're a bag of dicks, because they literally have never had anybody be honest with them, be real. And so they become so nerfed in their world, they become callous. I mean, they have no callous whatsoever.
Right. It's like safe spaces and protection of like helicopter parents and, you know, oh dear, my child sneezed and I've got to make sure, you know, like, yeah. And what you're saying, not love.
Right. And so what you find here is the Taoist principle comes in. That which you wish to avoid, you create. So when you try to make a safe space and keep your kids safe, you're literally putting them in mental, emotional, spiritual danger.
Yeah.
Because they're not equipped to deal with the real world.
The word trigger, I don't think I've heard that enough. Yes, right. Yeah, and it's so funny because I've never really used that word before, and now lately I've been using it with people just so that they understand, you know, I'm speaking on their language, but it is a trigger word has become the trigger word. Like, oh, I'm triggered. That means everybody, you know, like, you know, hold the phone. I've got to have something happen that's different here. So let me ask you this then, okay? Just sort of getting back to, you talked about Sufism and then you talked about Taoism, and they're not the same. So describe the Rumi love and describe what you're talking about in the Taoist love. Because I want to also bring this back to relationships.
In the everyday person application, they're two separate things, because Rumi teaches you to love ecstatically. The funny thing about it is Rumi's a Sufi, which means he's a Gnostic.
Right.
So he's not talking about loving your fellow man in that way necessarily. He's talking about loving your immortal self, your sadness.
Right.
But he doesn't say that because he's a Sufi. And I don't know if you know much about, but the Sufis are not exactly historically the most liked people within that subculture. They are non-binary, non-cisgen. They're so spiritually fluid. It's amazing. Taoism is the fundamental operating system of Chinese culture. So even though Confucianism and Buddhism eventually get going, people still think very Taoist.
Really?
Yeah, because China started off being Taoist, very shamanic,
right.
tribal. And so if you look at Confucianism, that's just Taoism put to a hierarchy. And it's a terrible.
Put into a hierarchy? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so here's a classic thing. Confucius was like, okay, so if heaven is yang and earth is yin, and men are yang and women are yin, well, heaven's above earth, therefore men are above women. Bob's your uncle, nice as you please. Now, Taoists are sitting there going, no, please stop. Ow, I got a headache. Ow, headache. Because that's the dumbest thing in the world. You cannot make that equation. It makes no sense because Taoists go by that one law, right? Maybe. So if you look at Chinese parents, for example, they're very practical usually. Chinese culture is very practical. My master was born to Taoist priests from Hua Mountain. At 6 years old, they're on Song Mountain, which is another Taoist 5 sacred mountains. And they do his birth chart and they're like, well, it says he should be a monastic. The first thing his mom was like, where's the nearest monastery? And they went to the nearest monastery was a Chan Buddhist monastery. So they're like, Master Buddhist, we did the birth chart right over there. And it says that he should be a monastic. And they're like, okay. He's like, all right, son, you're a Buddhist. He's like, what's a Buddhist? You get the hell out of here. And they jet, never came back.
Did he ever talk about that? I mean, is there any kind of emotional, that's so weird. Isn't there any kind of emotional like thing that happens? It's
No,
just
because
like,
he was a Buddhist monk who grew up in real austerity and severity. So, but I won't say it didn't come out sideways in his behavior because he took on an 8-year-old Guilo.
what is that?
I mean, and he's a
Oh, you.
Yeah.
That's insanity. But that's also such deep love too. Like he must have
right.
had.
But it was hard on him because one, he was like 81 years old when I met him.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize he was that old.
Yeah,
Dude, anybody 81 years old taking you on?
Well, the thing was, I used to sit on a pillow, well, actually levitate a few feet above, and I used to drink unicorn milk and Fuji juice.
I know. You came out enlightened. I don't know what the.
Well, I asked him one time because I used to get hit with a stick a lot. And he used to say, Shovel, but you're a Buddhist. You shouldn't be hitting a kid. You get bad karma for that, right? He's like, when I see Buddha, he wiped all my karma because I raised you. I could shoot him. It's awesome.
I think it wiped out karma from his and everyone else that was in that monastery. Just.
Well, but the idea is you've got to do what needs to be done. Now, this is why Sufis are very touchy-feely. They're very
tactile, smells, fragrances. Yeah.
So when they talk about loving the immortal, it's going to be out of that very sensory experience. Taoists are not. You generally typically don't see Taoists, holding hands. Not that they can't. It's just typically, especially renunciate or full-time Taoists, their ablutions and their adorations happen internally, and you can see it because you'll see pictures or you'll read accounts where they say you see this Taoist and he's so blissfully happy and he's so peaceful. Yeah, he's doing what Rumi's doing. He just doesn't make a spectacle of it. Right. He doesn't do it on the outside because one, it doesn't make any sense for them because it's not going to help you at all. Matter of fact, it's likely to piss you off, But Rumi was just like, well, I'm around a bunch of Sufis. I'd like to hug them too. And since we're going to whir like some dervishes later, let's skin this bitch alive, right? So, but the idea of the love is okay, so to a Taoist, the important thing is to follow Tao. And Tao is the process of all processes of nature, all processes, nothing excepted. So if you look at stars, they go supernova, right? They go in and they destroy so much. That's love.
Right,
because
right.
If that doesn't happen, our universe doesn't work. White dwarfs, black holes, they rip matter and reality to shreds, and yet we look at them with wonder. Oh, we have pictures of black holes. That's nice. Are you fucking with me? That thing's gonna rip a whole universe apart. Are you kidding me? Oh, yes, but that's a beautiful part of nature. Really? How about you tell your kid, no, I can't do that. That's like how it works.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. That is so funny.
And it's like, it's funny because if you go outside, the Westerner hears birds and they're chirping and this is so wonderful, the birds. If you understood what they're saying, they're screaming at each other of genocide. They're trying to rip each other apart and rape each other. This is the thing. Nature ain't fun. Now, it's in harmony and it's all loving in that each part has to do its part, or else not everything can happen. If you take one thing away from reality, everything's gone. You cannot, if everything's to exist, everything must exist.
Right.
But to absolutely accept and allow all things to have their own nature, this This is love.
So the tree losing its leaves, letting
Love.
it go, is a form of what you're talking about. Taoist love would be. I mean, that's a little bit more beautiful than, raping.
Even then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, bed bugs don't have genitals, so they have to literally rip a hole in another bed bug. But there would be no bed bugs if they went. You and I
Oh,
might
I've
be.
had bed bugs.
You might be like, I hate them.
It's like
But
they had no mercy. Damn, their love is really, really harsh.
right? But and you see a lot of animals and a lot of things, and you go, well, I mean, that can't be love. It's like, no, that's not love in your world. Fine,
Right.
but the world is not tantamount to the world. We don't live in a one world, one love. That's all some goddamn hippie stuff. Stop it. It's not how that works. Love is simply allowing things to be what they are, even if it's counter to what you like.
Ooh, okay. All right. Great. Hold that thought. Okay. So I'm gonna read this next part because I think you're gonna like this part. So okay, so the first requirement of Lao Tzu's meaning of love is acceptance. Genuine love requires accepting a loved one without reservation. In the same way, it is necessary to embrace the world around you. For example, if you don't embrace an idea, it is difficult to comprehend it at its deepest level.
Yes.
A mathematician must first accept math as an interesting field of study. Otherwise, he will never be able to learn and comprehend its principles.
Yes.
An athlete must love his sport in order to train with the enthusiasm needed to excel. You cannot be partially committed to anything of value.
Right.
Would you trust a doctor who is repulsed by the sight of blood but performed surgery anyway because it was a good source of income? Emotional acceptance is a prerequisite to functioning efficiently in any endeavor. It opens the senses and enables the mind and body to function correctly. Now, I made a few notes of my own in here back when I read this the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put it this way. Would you trust a woman who was repulsed by the sight of your penis? Would you trust a man who was repulsed by the sight of your body?
No, because you can't influence somebody you're judging. And repulsion usually it comes along with rejection, and that's the ultimate painful. So let's do one more caveat on this concept of love, because it goes into what you were just reading. Yes, acceptance is the highest practice of all Taoists. I don't care if you're like, no, Nadon. You can't do Nadon without acceptance, because Nadon is the ultimate acceptance, even to the annihilation of the self.
So people are not going to know what Nadong is. You want to give a quick?
Yeah, Nadon is internal alchemy. It's the mystical experience of reuniting with that highest self. Doesn't mean your best self. Highest does not mean best. Highest means the actualized potential, which has
Becoming a real human.
Well, yes, and this is it goes into the nth. But here's what you have to understand. Mm-hmm. This is where the Westerners again diverge from how the Taoists normally meant it. Accepting something is not condoning it. Accepting something is not being happy about it. Accepting something is not, like, I get a woman in one of my Wednesday meditations, and this is what she said. So when I had public ones, and I would get like 30 people, I wouldn't even know who these people are, and they just show up, and they're like, dance monkey. I'm like, and so she was like, so you're telling me that if loving and acceptance is the highest version, so if my husband beats me, I should just accept that. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Didn't you hear Tina Turner? What love got to do with it, man?
That's right. It ain't got nothing to do with that.
Now, does it mean that you have to allow yourself to get beat? That's not love. You have to accept that person is screwed up. You have to accept that person where it is. Then you have to make a temperate discernment. Should I put space between myself and that person? Because you may not be able to love them up close. Here's the best way I've ever heard a teacher explain to me to understand humans, especially when it comes to love. Chemistry. Chemistry is the rules by which humans love. Not every element on the periodic table needs to be next to each other. Some of them are quite explosive and volatile. Some of them are quite philic and phobic, right? For example, when you have sulfur and oxygen, sulfuric oxide, right? Wow, they go together so well. Hydrogen and oxygen, right? Water, oh, it's amazing. But you put cesium and water together, you're gonna have an explosion. Lithium and an explosion. Now, which one of them is the abuser? Which one of them is bad? That's dumb. They're just not compatible. They're volatile and caustic, just like people. So why do you think the periodic table has some of them so far apart? The answer is because they don't belong near each other without there being a blow up. So when you're talking about people, you've got to talk about the same thing. Know what you're for, what you're philic with, and know what you're not for. And sometimes, but helium being over there with the noble gases and the lanthanides or the actinides, they're far apart. They're far apart. But you don't see helium going, you rare earth bitches. You just think you're better than everybody else. You really is. Okay? When I was a gender fluid, non-cisgen, non-heteronormative element, I still didn't act like you. Canceled. Nope, didn't happen. Doesn't happen. Right? The rare earth metals are like, I'm better than all you bitches. I'm rare. What's up? What's up? No, it doesn't work that way. They all understand and they all work in harmony with one another. Some stay apart, that creates the harmony. Some come together, it creates a harmony. See, the dualistic aspect of the Western mind says when things are together and loving, that's harmony. No, it's not. No, it's not. Sometimes staying away from people that are not for you is the greatest thing you can do. I'm an advisor now. I deal with people in all forms of business, from small businesses to major executives. And I tell them all the time, listen, I'm telling you now, it is almost more important to keep the people you are not for away from your business than to find out the people you're for. It's almost more important, right? Know who you're for. How do you do that? Well, you have to know your nature now, don't you?
Yeah.
Because your nature will tell you who you're for. So the first act of love starts with accepting your own nature. Okay, but Lao, what if I'm jealous and I'm petty and I'm temperamental? Well, no shit. You're a monkey. It's fine. Everybody's petty and jealous and temperamental, especially when you're not getting your needs met. It's a fact. You get your needs met, you're fat, dumb, and happy. You don't get your needs met, you're a nightmare. This is how all humans are.
So that's pun and hoe that we talked about last time.
Right.
Or 2 times ago, yeah.
If you're getting those needs met, you're quite docile. I mean, think about it. When you first fall in love with somebody, they're like, oh, I'm sorry I'm a little late for dinner. It's okay, sweetie. Just go get cleaned up. It's okay. I ran over some nuns. Those bitches deserved it. Don't even worry about it. Just go out. I love him. I love him. Right? You don't care. You don't care.
Right. And you could stub your toe and you're just like, I'm fine. I'm not in pain.
Because you got your needs met.
Yeah.
But the thing is it's about accepting your nature. I wake up in the morning. I get up well before anybody else because I don't want to talk to anybody in the morning. I want to do my practices. I want everybody to shut up. I don't want to have a conversation. I don't care about anything. Doesn't mean I don't love people. It just means during that hour, leave me the hell alone. And if you don't, you're probably going to get a version of me. You're going to be like, whoa, what the hell is wrong with you? Nothing. That's my hour. What, dude? What? And then I go into my day and I start my day and I get going. And I'm doing and I'm going and I'm all that. I accept that about myself. It's perfectly fine. I don't consider it a foible. I don't consider it's just part of who I am. It's what makes me me. Tigers, so cute and loving and wonderful. They're balls of fucking murder. They just murder shit. And they don't always eat what they kill. It's like, no, they just eat what they're hungry for. Tigers and fucking regular house cats love to just eat shit. That's what it does. Eat shit. And so you got to accept their nature. You love a tiger in a zoo. You love a tiger on a video. Bet you don't like a tiger up close. Mm. You know its nature. Well, you have a nature too. Poe, the tiger, right? So you've got to respect and care for that tiger. If you feed him properly, tiger's probably not going to pounce on you at all. Just wants his belly scratched and sit in a box. That's what they do. But you've got to respect your own nature And you've got to give yourself that self-love, which again has nothing to do with getting my nails painted and getting these reflexology and getting me a soy verde la macchiato whip. No, no, no. It's not about self-love. Self-love is what needs to happen so that you can be the best version of yourself.
Wow.
Because then you give that best version of yourself to the world. You see? And by giving that best version of yourself to the world is a better place for you being in it. But if you do the puritanical thing, right, which they made a hedonistic lifestyle out of suffering, it's not going to serve you well.
Wait, repeat that again. They made a hedonistic lifestyle out of suffering? Is that what you said?
Yeah. The more you
explain that a little bit more.
Well, think about it, right? Puritans were basically like, I need to wear burlap underwear. If I can get a burlap thong, I'll get that. You know, I want to suffer because the more I suffer in this, the more my
okay, you have to pause after burlap thong. Okay, you can't just like plow over that one. That was like hilarious. Okay,
right?
I'm having visions of this. Okay, go ahead.
But that's the idea: is that the more I suffer here, the better my reward will be. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. If you're an asshole here, you're going to be an asshole there. Period. Right? But that's that dualism that comes from Calvinistic thinking. But to a Taoist, no. You can make heaven and hell now. It's just a matter of are you getting your needs met or are you not getting your needs met?
Yeah.
And so if you're getting your needs met, well, Bob's your uncle. Life's good. If you're not getting your needs met, yeah, you're going to be a pain in the ass to yourself, which will leak out to everyone in your vicinity. That's facts. So
I want to ask you in terms of getting your needs met, because this is I think it's probably in every relationship, the biggest things like, okay, you're not meeting my needs and I married you so that you would, or I've gotten a relationship with you so that you would. I had these expectations. And, going back to a little bit of what I was saying in terms of, I talk to men and women both. It's sort of like, well, just not that into him anymore. I'm not that into her, or, I love her, but, I'm not interested. She doesn't turn me on. She's not attractive to me anymore. And the same thing that could be said. And I also wanted to, I kind of, as I was making these notes, I came up with this fabulous word that I have to tell you about, because I have this theory that, just like you were talking about yin and yang and how, the opposites attract, and that passion really does have to do with the fact that it's not the same, that there is, some tension there. And sure. I feel like, in relationships, especially if you're sleeping with someone every night, there's becomes like a homogenization of your energy. And I came up with this term, rather than matrimony, homogemony. like our marriage is now a homogemony, and it's no longer, this like fiery attraction, which we had. And of course, you have children and a woman's body changes and she's like, dude, I'm like nursing here, can you just like give me a chance to, so talk a little bit about how do you get your needs met when they are so hard to get from someone else?
You're not supposed to get it from someone else. See, if you took marriage in the late 1700s now and you tried to explain them, people would be like, what the fuck? That's not marriage. Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? It's really a modern invention, meaning the last 100 years, where people said, I'm married to you, I'm going to give you X, and you're now obligated for all my needs, all my wants, all my feelings, and if I don't feel the way I want whenever I want, your ass is going to get it. That's not love. That's literal slavery. That's literally making someone your scapegoat. Bad form, man, bad form. Here's how you...
And so just to frame it, it is what we do, because we go on the internet and we list, these dating sites. It's like, this is who I am and this is what I'm looking for. And, and so it's like we create almost like a menu, of like, these are the things that
Yep.
And then how do you meet someone like that?
You don't. So here's what has to happen. First, and I've done this. You know, I did counseling with couples for about a decade in the clinic. And here's what I would always ask: what's your ideal relationship? What do you want? This is where they get to do their menu order. And I say, okay, so you do the same, they do the same. Okay, talk it out. What can you agree on or whatever? But then once they're kind of got enough of a congruence, I ask them, so now who do you have to be in order to make that reality? Who do you have to be? Because a lot of times in relationships, what you want is, I want to be a bag of dicks, but I need you to be on your A game so that I can stay a bag of dicks all the time. And so this is where you get the variety and certainty it needs. You be certain, you be a mountain, you never move. I'm going to go through this whole hero's journey and you're going to be my Miyagi, right? Because think about it, right? Think about the Karate Kid. Mr. Miyagi did not change for shit. He was the same, wise and dependable, never thought of himself. That's what we think we want. But the problem is we don't. In relationships, it's not about the other person because you can't control the other person. There's a question that it comes to me when it's like, well, you know, we've been married for 25 years. I don't know if it's going to work out. And I go, that seems reasonable. I'm like, you think it's reasonable that a marriage for 25 years? I'm like, okay, if you would do me a favor, could you show me in the book of life what the statute of limitations on a marriage relationship should be like? How long should it be for? Is it 37 years? Is it 26 years and 54 days? Like how long should it last? I'm like, well, I mean, you can't know. I'm like, what if a spouse dies at 12 years? I mean, God damn it, you broke the contract. And she's like, well, I mean, no, you know, sometimes things don't happen. Wrong. How long should a relationship last? The answer is long enough. It's a very Taoist way of looking at it. Long enough. I don't know what you need when you're 60, but you don't either. I know that if you and I decide, I love you, it's amazing, let's do this, okay? Because we're basing that on what? That place we are in our life right there. And maybe it's compatible right there. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not, but we're shoehorning it because we're desperate and eHarmony's about to
And there's
run
a
out.
fantasy of the future that you've created maybe together in some way.
Right. And during those things, each person is being as authentically genuine as they can, but you can't speak for yourself from 10 years. You can't. And you don't know what's going to happen. People, and a woman, she was a prima ballerina on her way to her very first show where she was a principal lead. And she went on their way there, got in a car accident, lost both of her legs. That's a hard thing for somebody who's been dancing their whole life to make this one moment. And before she even gets that moment, she lost both legs. And what's interesting is I almost predicted it, that her relationship was going to crumble because of it. Because her identity was, I'm a ballerina, and now I can't be a ballerina. Therefore, I can't be that woman who loved you. Because that identity, right? This is love and identities are everything. And as you grow, your 20-year-old you is not like 40-year-old you. Shouldn't be. But yet 20-year-old you is going to be like, and I do. Oh, this is amazing. And then what? Now you've got this person at 40 with ear hair and no hair on top and a big belly. And then at 60, he's, you know, fetid. What are you supposed to do with that? And the answer is none. That's what's going to happen. So can some people make that work? Sure. If you say homogenous, sure. Meaning you're from the same culture, you're from the same language, you have the same beliefs, not really looking, personal excellence isn't really your thing. You'll find that people whose personal excellence is high on the list of needs, their relationships don't last.
Their relationship what?
Won't last.
If their needs are so high, is that what you're saying?
If they're standard, if their personal excellence is their highest needs, they're usually the relationship, because you get two people, they come to marriage, and maybe they're doing like this, and then one or the other, usually a woman, that women are more prone to this, they'll start to grow, and they'll start to grow, and they'll start to grow. And this one here, right? It's the old saying, women marry men hoping they'll change, and they never do. Men marry women hoping they'll never change. And they do. Yeah, hoping they won't change, but they do, right? It's the same thing, right? So they start growing and growing and growing. And what is this called? Growing apart. Growing, it isn't going like this, it's going like this. And you'll find that, I would have workshops and classes and all, and people would come in and I would say, okay, how many of you here are by yourself? And people raise their hand. How many are here with a prospective partner? And then, they raise their hand. And how many people here but have a partner at home? And a lot of people would raise their hands. I'm like, okay, I'm like telling you now, if you want your money back, it's perfectly fine. But there's a good chance your marriage or relationship is going to end after this worship. And you'd be like, why? Because you're going to come in feeling happy and great, and that person's going to look at you, but they've been sitting on the couch the whole time, or whatever they do. You're going to walk in and be, oh my God. And they're going to go, why the fuck are you so happy? And you're going to go, this is what I've been living in? Mm-hmm. Does it mean that the person at home is bad? No. Is it they've done something wrong? No, they're living their life. But you don't realize that when you're a baby, you need milk. And when you're a teenager, you need angst and Instagram and to tell your parents that you've ruined your life. And when you're in your 20s, you need to recant half of the hateful shit you said when you were a teenager and realize that you actually don't know anything, right? You go through these stages. And nobody ever talks to you about over 40, like those ones, right? But 40 is a big age for our species. And we don't know what's going to be our needs or not our needs. We don't know how we're going to espouse the world. And we don't know the environment. Like, look at the world now. When you were 20 years old, that was a very different world. Try being 20-year-old now.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
well, I was also thinking there was a time when, you didn't live beyond 40. So you didn't really get to know what was beyond that. And so it is like, and now people are living, beyond 100,
And so what happens is love becomes a very different thing at 20 than at 40 than at 60.
Yeah.
And it's not because you're bad or you're wrong or you're crazy. It's because we're dynamic beings that grow. And so you may have this amazing relationship. I know couples who have sat in my room on my couch and we had a conversation and they looked at each other and they did their work and they were very amiable and they came and they said, I think we found the best decision for our relationship. I was like, what's that? We're going to get a divorce. I'm like, okay, how do you guys feel about it? I feel great. I feel like I can truly get to know him as a person now. It's like, hooray. Right, but that's love, where they were both better friends. They were both closer with one another. As far as I understood, they retained fringe benefits. But why did that need to happen? I don't know. You want to be the arbiter of our monkey-ass species? No, thanks. But it's doing what's necessary for the moment. So can you love somebody who has outgrown you and let them go be where they need to be? Mm-hmm. Ooh, hard love. So Taoism has 3 versions of love. Okay. Actually 4. Yeah, you could put 4, even though people don't normally see it as it. There's the fourth, the lowest level is called childish love. It's demanding. Give it to me now. Right? That love is what a 4-year-old does.
Right.
So happy and oh my God, accepting. Don't give me what I want. I'm gonna scream bloody murder. Right? And I know people who are 44 who still do that, actually. Then there's the next one up, which is sort of like bartering. It's like tit for tat. Oh, I'd love for you to go with your friends out and go have a good time. Go ahead. And then you're writing it down in the ledger. So it comes, well, since you've gone and done these things, what about? That's that tit for tat. And you're keeping a ledger. And the problem with that is you don't necessarily value the same way that the other person does. So while you think you did 3 things for me, yeah, but those 3 are like 17. Oh, well, that value system isn't necessarily shared. So you're going to get resentment because there's expectation, and expectations are always resentments under construction. The next version is called true love. True love says, I'm going to help you get your need met even before I worry about mine, because I realize that the only way to really get my love and needs met is by helping you, right? Because if I want to be full, I have to make a sandwich and eat it. I can't give you the sandwich and then I'm full. You can't go pee for me. you want to feel love, you got to go love. You have to do it. You can't wait for somebody to give it to you, which is why people always feel empty. I know so many people are like, I've been trying to love them all the time, and I've done 100 things and nothing works. It's like, no, you've done everything but what they consider love. But if the person's not going to accept that love, no matter what you do, it doesn't work. And the reason why it usually doesn't work is because they haven't gotten that personal love yet. So they don't feel they're worthy. We don't get what we deserve. We get what we believe we deserve. And if you believe you're a piece of shit, that's what you're going to get, because that's what you believe. And the fourth and highest version of love is called inspired love. This is that iconic love. This is that love that's out of the ballpark. So when the Tibetan occupation happened, Chinese soldiers were told, go kill every Buddhist you see. So they go in there and they're shooting and they're going after it. And this one monk takes 2 rounds to the chest and he falls over this precipice, and this Chinese soldier comes over to finish him off. When he does, he sees that monk praying, even though he's got 2 rounds in his chest. Please, just let me take all the bad karma. Don't let him have any of it. He doesn't know any better. Just give it all to me. I'll take it with me. He threw his rifle down. Was like, I don't want no part of that shit. He's like, this is not a person. Right? That's the iconic love. What it means is, even if a person hurts you, you still understand that that's not a reflection on you, and you don't have to take that personally. That's a reflection on them. And you don't take your love away. That's hard. That's what most people call love. It can be. And it doesn't mean that, well, what if they stab me? Should I just let them stab me again? No, jackass. That doesn't mean that at all. But you understand, right? When Pope John Paul was shot by the guy, a couple days later or whatever, he was in a Turkish jail forgiving that guy. Why? Because he doesn't want to carry that shit around with him. He doesn't want to be holding on to that, right? Buddha said, anger is poison that you drink, hoping the other person dies. It makes no sense.
Right.
But everybody is where they are in their life. You can't argue that. You don't know what that is on their path. And they're going to do dumb shit. You're going to do dumb shit. Accepting and allowing that and saying, listen, man, like, you've personally been through stuff with me where you've seen me go through it. You've never seen me become bitter. I went through all the feelings. I didn't hide any of them, but at the end, I never held on to it. And I loved that person. And even more so, I helped to do everything to make that person successful. Why? Because that's the vaccination against letting resentment and bitterness in your own heart.
Right.
Is it easy? No. Can sometimes it not practically be done? Sure.
Yeah.
But
well, because you're married to you first, and who wants to live with some kind of crap living in your mind like that?
Yeah, no one should live rent free in your head.
Yeah. I want to get back to something really practical, and we're getting to our hour, and always I could just talk to you forever, but I want to just bring it back to something like super practical in terms of, you've given, 4 different kinds of love and 4 different levels of it. And, most of us are probably just on the first one. And then if we're not, we're bartering still, like, well, if I bring her flowers, she'll give me sex, that kind of thing. Right. So let's just say, and I want to say one thing, and that is that it seems to me, I've watched people now over the years, and, friends and clients and people I see, that there comes a period in, and it is probably around 40 if they stay through it, where a couple will really dislike each other. This is not what I signed up for. This is, I'm not attracted to this person anymore, but I'm staying there for the kids or whatever that is. And then what I notice is that something like 7 to 10 years later, they somehow work something through that they're kind of on the other side. So even when the kids leave, they end up staying. And maybe that's because the security of, we're going to retire now, and we, like, that would be complicated. But I see people stay together. I actually look at it, I almost see it this way. I think that men stay with women more than women will stay with men. And maybe that's partly what you said, is that women tend to want to grow, but men, I'll be like, well, I can deal with that just as long as I don't have to pay alimony or something like that, in my 65 years, but what are just like, what would you say would be a practical thing at level 1 and level 2, okay, that you could say to people, like, how can you accept, like, for instance, how can you accept somebody that you don't feel attracted by, but how can you accept saying, okay, I'll still have sex with you, or, because you're my husband or you're my wife, or how do you get beyond, this sort of like, no, I need to have it look like that movie that I saw or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you get beyond that? So just something super practical.
Okay. So first and foremost, you have to understand that everything in the universe goes between polarities. So there's an intense attraction at the beginning, but then the equal and opposite reaction is you can have a strong aversion. It usually actually happens between the 7th and 12th year. That's
is a strong aversion.
Right.
So they call it the 7-year itch, right? Or the 12-year, I don't know. Yeah.
There, and from 7 to 12 years, somewhere in there, you're not going to like each other. Why? Mostly it comes back to you're just now finding out about yourself. I mean, what the hell does a 25-year-old really know? Nothing. What does a 35-year-old know? They're getting an idea, but they still don't know anything. At 40, you're like, wait, I'm not going to be young and supple and nubile and virile forever. Wait, what? What are these lines covering? So that's when life starts to hit you, and all that fairy tale that you've been like, no. Life's like, yes. Right. And that includes that other person too. Right. And why? Well, it goes back to teenagers, actually. Remember, when your children are young, they usually, as long as there's a good family situation, usually are very kind and loving to mom and dad. But then when they're teenagers, you're the dumbest they ever lived. Why? Because there must be that friction to cause them to go.
Exactly.
It's the same. We're wired for that. So it's the same thing in a marriage. Well, I would have all these amazing things if she doesn't let me, and he won't. Mm-hmm. It's you. Just like when you're a teenager, it's you. It isn't the other person, it's you. In fact, there's a Daoist technique that you can do. Get in front of the mirror, get your toothbrush, put the toothpaste on, you start brushing your teeth. You lock eyes with yourself, and this is the mantra you use. Every fucking problem in my life is your fault. Every fucking thing. So it's a powerful technique. Ancient Chinese secret.
And you have to be brushing your teeth? Is that?
It helps. It helps because the mint releases the spirit. But seriously, it's you. And what happens is if you sit with it long enough, you start to realize it was always you. You had unreasonable expectations. Why does it last? Even if the kids are gone, you stay. Most of the time it's realized you're full of shit. But the thing is you've come to be accepted. It just takes time for some people. Mm-hmm. For a Taoist, those who can accept difficult truths fastest have the advantage. Mm. But it can't be me. I was young and virile and I wasted my time. It's like, you're still an asshole no matter who you're married to. Relax, calm down, Crutchy. You're an asshole. It's okay. Right? And so, but you have to really know who you are. You have to be at peace with yourself by accepting who you are. There are times when me and the missus, she'll say something and, I feel it's this way. Okay. So, well, don't you think that? Not a fucking chance. No. Well, how can you not see it that way? Because I don't give a fuck. And that's just where I'm at. You may not like it. I don't give a shit. That's your deal. You can imagine that sometimes she gets a little upset about that. And I don't even know what that's about. I'm like, what? I thought we were being honest. I was honoring you by being honest, is that I don't give a shit. If you care, great. Viacom deal. Skin that bitch alive. Do your thing, man. But I personally could give a shit less. And it doesn't require me to care about something in her life for her to care about it. And I don't need to care about it to understand she cares about it. And therefore I make space for her to do that. As a Taoist, I've even had the conversation, listen, at any time you need to go, that needs to happen. I completely get it. Don't even worry about it. It's okay. I love you enough to be wherever you need to be. You know that actually gets you in a lot of goddamn trouble. You're so happy I'm leaving. I didn't say shit about being happy you're leaving. I said I love you enough that that's what you need to do. You don't have to worry about me putting my shit on you, giving you all my mommy and daddy abandonment issues. If I mean at 20 years old, you don't know at 45 maybe that they need to go. Maybe that's best for them. Maybe they have traumas that they have to work out, and they spent all those years trying to cover them up and trying to I'll just do this and I'll just go away. Feelings buried alive never die.
Yeah.
So sometimes that person's got to pull their secondary chute. They're out. It happens. Now, is that a mark on their partner? Typically, no. It's a mark on them. Your behavior is a mark on your character. Their behavior is a mark on their character. But I understand before I went into a marriage contract, I understood. I don't know how long this is for. Maybe the rest of my life, but maybe an hour. I don't know. I know that because you used to say, no, marriages should be forever. Okay, and what happens when they die in 3 months? Then what? You want your money back? You're gonna shake your fist at people. We don't know how long we have. We know that we have right now, and that is not guaranteed next. So we do the best we can. But life changes. The Himalayas used to be at the bottom of the ocean. Now they're at the top of the world. Shit changes. Things change. And so you have to make allowance. This is one of the parts of accept and allow. You have to accept that people are very dynamic. And because they're dynamic, if it makes sense, you keep going. If it doesn't make sense, and I'm not talking about it gets too hard. I don't mean that. But there are times when you'll know, I can't stay. And you have to let the other person go, look, it's okay, I understand. Maybe in the future it'll be fine. Maybe we come back together. If you leave the bridge open, there's a possibility. You burn that son of a bitch, there's no possibility. And you're going to blame the other person for that. That's not their fault. We don't know why anything does what it does, except for that it's following its way. To love somebody, you have to let them follow their way. You say, well, what if they're doing drugs, or what if they're addicted to pornography? And is that their way? At this stage, right now, apparently, yes. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, right? One of the funniest things I've always found about the Western Semitic religions is that, there's a deep understanding and belief in redemption, and yet I find more and more as time goes on, people have less and less tolerance for redemption. But relationship requires a huge, huge commitment to redemption. Yeah. And if you're like, well, you did X, Y, and Z, I don't know if I could trust you again, then get out.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to stay in the marriage. You're going to stay in the marriage, but there's no trust. What the fuck kind of sense does that make? Right? You gotta be, there needs to be radical honesty, because if you're going to literally live with this person and you're not honest, you're not in a relationship with them. You're in a usury situation.
Right. Yeah. So, so one of the things that, I've really noticed around relationships, around sexuality, that if there isn't the element, and this is part of the 3 treasures, right? If there isn't a spirit involved in it, if it isn't a spiritual journey on some level, that it's torturous because it has no purpose other than an egoic, it's just my identity and my ego finding, a way to feel good about itself. And as the ego will never be satisfied, it's just it's a downward spiral. And so what I hear you talking about is, no, you're in you choose a relationship because you're on a spiritual path together, and it may look really different. And some days it might look like crap, and you're just like, how are we going to get beyond this? Like, this seems like, and then, but yet it is your journey of your spirit learning something, right?
Right. And the thing is look at a sun. Let's use a sun as a metaphor for humanity, right? The rays go in all directions. right? It's the sun. It's 365 sphere, a 360-degree sphere, I mean, and it goes in all directions. Okay. Well, does this one going this direction? This one's gonna be like, you're not going the right way. You should be going. No, it's going on its path. Okay. Every soul is where it is in its path. They're not all the same age. They're not all, every soul is where it is. You may be like, I've read a lot of Deepak, and I've been listening to Oprah and Eckhart Tolle, who I thought was Meister Eckhart, but apparently they're different. And so I realize now that I cannot give a blowjob unless I feel spiritually connected. Hey, vaya con Dios, man. Do your thing. Skin that bitch to life. It's great. But if you're like, but he's just having baseless, mindless sex. Okay, that's where he's at. Isn't it terrible? You know, here's what I found out about most religious or pseudo-spiritual people, New Ages. When you're looking up at heaven, you have a sense that you're small. You have a sense of humility. When you're looking down, you're a grandiose motherfucker who somehow is an arbiter of everybody else's path. Don't be looking down on people. If, you know, we often talk about spirit, and we're like, no, this is spiritual, as if something is not spiritual. Yeah?
Right.
So I would ask you, bonobos. As far as I know, bonobos aren't reading Rumi. They're not reading James Joyce and Wadsworth and like, oh my God, before we all have an orgy based on stress, let me read Rumi. They don't do that. You know what they do? They just pound the hell out of each other. Like, you feeling stressed? And then they all just pound, and they just literally have orgies. And then they're like, okay, I think we did it. You need any more stress? We're good? Okay, let me take 5. And they can do that several times a day. Are they spiritual? Of course they are, but that's where they're at. Because you can't take away the idea of biology. Biology is still spiritual. It's just operating at one version of spirituality, and it needs to be actualized. Hence, Po and Hun must be together. Yes. So some people are still very much in the Po. 17-year-old boys come to mind. Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
very, very spiritual to them, because every gene in their body's like, bucket everything.
Every breast is goddess.
Inshallah. But should a 17-year-old not be like that? Of course they should be like
that.
It's how they're supposed to be.
But that's part of their spiritual journey. And that's
yes. I find that when they're like, but when they're 47 and doing it, I find that those 47-year-olds were repressed at 17-year-olds, and now the shit's coming out sideways. Mm-hmm. You're not getting off this journey. When you think the roses are the beautiful parts of the flower, no, the thorns, the stems, the roots, that's all the rose. It's all a goddamn rose.
Talking about a woman right there. It's pretty much it. The roses, there's a reason why it's a symbol of the feminine, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so that's a thing, right? So sometimes it's going to look gnarly. But, so does nature. Everything does. Like, for example, people would come to me, Lao, my doctor said I have a diagnosis of cancer, but I don't want to do any Western treatment, only spiritual and Eastern treatment. Okay, well, why only one and why not the other? Can you help me understand? I only want to do what's natural. Then go fucking die horribly. That's what nature wants, because you have cancer. So just go die horribly. No. I want to use. Whether it's an herb that I put in a capsule or chemo, both are processed by people. The only natural thing to do is just go die, because you passed on your seed, you passed on your genes, now go fucking die. But, no, I want to do something. Okay, great. So what's the difference between these herbs or needles and chemo? Chemo's poison. Is it? Can be. Of course, I know a lot of people who've taken herbs and gotten poisoned too. I know plenty of people who take medications and get killed too. I know people who eat bad food and die. you stop trying to think that you're going to get out of this life alive. You can't make a loophole with your contract with death. Love is loving what is. Heart pema chodron.
It's
Right?
tough. My goodness, it's tough on
But
the ego.
a person who can't accept that, now ask yourself, why do so many marriages end in divorce and acrimony? That's why. Because we've lost our ability. You know, in the 1700s, the reason why marriage was different is because people were dying in childbirth. Kids were dying.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had to accept reality, because reality was in your face with a sweaty sack, just, but you
I
couldn't
mean,
look away.
if you got pregnant, it could be a death sentence, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Now, we've nerfed our world, but the reality's not changed. But
Yeah.
we've gaslighted ourselves into thinking, no, it should be like this. I was listening to Dr. Phil, and he said, I don't give a good goddamn what Dr. Phil said. And I'll tell you another thing. If you're a person who takes relationship advice from the Dalai Lama, who's never been in a relationship, you're crazy. Stop thinking, don't go to a vegan for pork chop recipes. He ain't got no answers for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're in a situation right now where people are afraid to hug each other, kiss each other. You have to have a special pot of people that you can only have sex with. And we look at the world like we've got to make sure and save everyone so no one dies, and we'll just let the world, go down. If there's people who are probably going to die anyway of the flu this year, we got to make sure that they don't die. So there isn't respect for death in our culture.
I mean, yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like you were talking about, love
Yeah.
is respecting when things end.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah.
end, or
Yeah.
a person you love ends. And I'm not that spiritually evolved to not care about, I have preferences still, and I probably always will.
It's not about not caring.
Yeah.
It's not about caring. You can feel pain. If my wife had to leave, I would feel sad, but I would accept it because, well, that's what it is. Here's a practical part of that. If you make a big hoot and holler and you're a bastard and you did this and blah, 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 you can guarantee that every good memory you had of that person, you just pissed on. They didn't piss on it. You pissed on it. Why? Because you could have been like, listen, this isn't about me. Obviously, this is about you. It's not you. It's me. No, it's me. It's not you. Grow with love. Right? But if there's going to be a chance, which there may be, you got to leave that door open. You got to let that person know that they're loved for who they are, not for how they make you feel, which most people call love. I got to be a little honest. I'm going to honor people right now. If you love somebody because of how they make you feel, that's called fucking manipulation. That's called usury. That's some bullshit. And nobody likes to be.
It's called heroin in a way.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly. I want oxytocin. You're my dealer. And it's like, no, that's a dick move. That's a real.
Yeah. It's so confusing, really, because we're all addicts, and we want to feel good. We want to feel pleasure all the time. We're especially in a world where we have so many ways of feeling pleasure, like instantly. Certainly, the internet has got every possible thing we could want, and it's just like a smorgasbord of things. So when we don't feel good or feel something, there's this idea, it's almost like cognitive dissonance, like, oh my God, something is wrong with me. I'm not feeling pleasure. I'm not getting what I want, and or whatever. And then it's like, how do I get out of this state of panic, of feeling an emotion or feeling uncomfortable in any way? Like, oh my gosh, I'm hungry. I ate, breakfast, but I'm going to die if I don't get something right now. And we just are so spoiled, we really are.
When I get people who come to me in these states, I usually tell them to start doing primitive skills living, right? Go out and learn to make shelter for yourself. Go out and learn to desalinate your own water. Go out and learn to forage and learn plants. And the reason why is you have to learn to be a human again, because that's literal mental illness. And it really is, because you think if you have your blueprint that says, if I don't feel good, something's wrong, where the hell does it say you even have a right to feel good?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so this is why people love monks, and they're so enamored. Oh, look at, they can do with these austere things. No, they don't. They learn to embrace the suck. That's what they do. I take cold showers because he's spiritually enlightened. No, because I'm a whiny bitch, and cold showers
Yes.
makes me less of a whiny bitch.
So the idea of like doing 3 things a day that you hate that are really just for practice, just to like build your character, is a good idea.
It'll make you a better lover. It'll make you a better lover.
Yeah.
When you do things you hate, see, here's how this works. This is a very simple graphic. Okay, you take the scale of really, really unpleasant and good. Yeah, good. And then the middle, here's the average. We face and deal with so much good and very, very little bad.
Yeah.
So our scale is like this.
So skewed.
Average is bad. Good is average. So you have to have this stellar, John Belushi speedball experience to even be considered an Instagram influencer.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have got to get that scale right, because these people have no resilience. If you don't have resilience, you're going to die horribly, either by your own hand, or life's just going to beat the shit out of you down for no reason. So how do you come to love what is? Trademark Mary Kay. I'll tell you how you come to love what is. You simply first have to radically be honest with yourself and see what it is. Just because you don't like it doesn't make it wrong. It may not be right for you, but doesn't make it wrong. That applies to marriages and relationships, right? Just because you can't have what you want doesn't mean that's bad. Sometimes it's a wonderful stroke of luck not to get what you want. But knowing how to deal with difficult things makes you capable. So there's a book you can read called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Mm-hmm. He explains to you, you come out, see people coming out of those Holocaust camps, you think you're going to be like, oh my God, all 4 tires are, it's fine. Yes, but I have to get to work. Here, you'll get to work one day. It's fine.
Yeah.
You think that's not a big deal? Just got out of Auschwitz. No, don't really think it's
Yes.
I think there was a lot of marital strife after people get out of the camp. No. You know why? Because you have a perspective of how it really can be, and you got it pretty good. But if you never have it bad and you're constantly trying to avoid it, then everything good will become bad because your scale is messed up. Yesterday, I got up early in the morning. My body hurt. I was tired. I've been doing dad duty 100% right now. The missus is kind of under the weather. So I went for a run 7 miles. Then I did 2 hours of cardio and aerobic exercise. And then I did another 7 miles last night, all while making dinners and putting kids to bed and doing homeschool and all the things we're doing. Now, it was like, hey, don't you think you should take it easy? No. Why? Because if I constantly give in to my own bullshit, then my bullshit will become something I'm more enamored with than reality. And when you're more enamored with your bullshit than reality will take a back seat and you will live a cognitively dissonant life. You'll be,
right. Yeah.
For all practical intents and purposes, you'll be mentally ill. It's a mental illness, 100%.
Yeah. And then the bullshit, like you said, it's whatever it is that gives you pleasure and that you seek eventually will give you pain, because it will then become the monster that you're now trying to overcome because you never were able to face it and just say, well, it's like what you talked about, with the dragon with the different fingers, that each one of those is really another stage of conquering yourself, because we're not out to conquer anyone else.
You can't. It's you
Yeah.
don't even live in the same world with anybody else. They're in their
No,
own.
that's true.
But here's a practical tip that you can understand about. You said everybody's an addict. Addiction comes from one source. You have a problem with connection.
Yes.
So you've made connection to something other than people because they're bad, scary, dangerous, whatever your thing is. And so that's what addiction is. But
This is so much easier. I can turn it off. I don't have to, I don't even have to listen to you. Like, don't only talk to me through this, okay?
Yeah. And this is why we get all these other addictions, because you don't know how to have a proper relationship. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as a financial advisor, when I'm working with people and all, I'm watching their relationship with money, and it's the same type of relationship.
All right. Yeah.
It's exactly the same. And so you'll find that most of my clients, when they come to me, they think I'm coming to an advisor and he's a good guy, but they don't realize that I'm just doing the same thing as a Taoist. I was doing as a Taoist priest. I'm just helping people go.
Oh, probably 10 times more because they're dealing with money. It's huge.
I mean, we talk like in an hour long consult, maybe 10 minutes is on money. That's it. Because you can't really follow. They don't understand. That's why they come to you. Then they're talking about their health, their sex life, their marriage, their kids, their dreams and aspirations. That's what they talk about most of the time. And it's like, okay, well, like, how are you going to get there? And then I listen to them, and all the times where I see the dissonance, like, okay, I want to have a harmonious and loving marriage. Okay, do you accept your spouse for who they are and don't need to change them? Well, no, I mean, they need to. Okay, well, then you can't have a harmonious relationship. You've got to be the person to be able to have that.
Yeah.
And then we talk about why they can't. It's a very simple reason usually. They have these ideas how it should be.
Yeah.
And they should all over themselves.
That's right.
Yeah. It's not going to be that way, because if you've ever had kids, they grow up and they're so sweet and they're like, what is this sociopath doing? And how did my loins birth this? And then they become this altruistic man. You're like, oh my God, it's changing. And then they go into Hot Topic and you're like, what the fuck? Because they're on a path. And whether you're in a relationship with your kids or a relationship with your spouse or whoever, you got to love people enough to let them be who they are. But the only way you can do that is you got to be okay with who you are.
Well, I think also too, like, we think we're having a relationship with our spouse or with somebody else, but basically you're having a relationship with a fairy tale that you learned when you were 5 years old about, like, what you were going to be like, and what the man was going to be, what the woman was going to be, and then you're trying to make that person into that, and then they're not that, and then again there's cognitive dissonance, like, oh my God, I'm in this nightmare. I made this huge mistake. I thought this person was going to do this and be this for me, and they're not. And you don't even realize that it was propaganda that you bought. Like somebody, somewhere gave you this fantasy, this fairy tale, and you see it, on every magazine and every, like even reality TV is a fantasy. And we're trying to recreate this, and we don't even really know who we would be if all this reality wasn't just handed to us on a platter, saying, this is what you need to be making this much money, marry this type of man, have this many kids, and they need to look like this, and
Yeah. So here's one of the things that I find with a lot of these situations. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. My 9-year-old, amazing gymnast. It's just incredible physicality. He's actually extraordinarily smart, except for his brain is not neurotypical, so he can figure things out amazing, but he can't explain to you how, because, well, he's not neurotypical, meaning his way is specifically his, which good he came to a Daoist dad, because I'm like, do your thing, man. I don't give a shit.
Right on. Yeah.
Right. But we originally, before we started homeschooling, we put them in something called Waldorf, right?
All right.
Rudolf Steiner, right? And so he's going to that, and they say no media. The reason why is they want the kid to do superheroes. They want all that, but don't tell them what the superhero does. make them tell you what the superhero does.
Yeah.
So they have to use their own facilities, right? Because if you put somebody on a ventilator, they're probably going to die because their brain, their lungs won't work anymore.
Right. Why would they? Why would they need to, right?
Right. Same with opiates. When you come off, you can die of coming off of opiates because your hypothalamus hasn't been working, right, because the opiate has been doing, right? So it's kind of the same thing. So he likes this thing now called Avatar: The Last Airbender, which you think, oh, that's really good Eastern philosophy and all. Yes, but no. He doesn't know that shit's not real because that frontal cortex doesn't actually come into play. So when I want this and it didn't happen, well, why would that happen? Oh, because that's what happened on it. And it's like, so we have to have this constant readjustment of, listen, life is life. Disney did that for a lot of people.
Still does.
But then they leave Disney because that's just for children. But then they go to Grand Theft Auto for boys. They go to Elle, Vogue, Vanity Fair, Cosmo, Ring.
How do you know all these?
Listen, as a gender fluid, non-cisgen person, I am woke. Such a horrible person. Oh. And what do those teach you? You're not enough. You know they're Photoshop. Have you used? Everybody knows they're Photoshop. Has the circulation gone down? No, not a bit. Why? Because of the cognitive dissonance that, but I want to look like that. Yeah, but she doesn't look like that. Yeah, but I could. No, you can't, you narcissistic ass. You can't. You look like you, right? And so the anxiety and the stresses that come from a parallel world that doesn't even exist.
Right.
And you don't.
And superimposing it in the real world, and it's like, shit. What do you do with that?
That's where the addiction comes from.
Yeah.
This is what the Buddhists would call the Maya, right? You're addicted. Right. Your attachment to the Maya. Daoists are like, it's great, but deal with what is. Just because suffering comes from resisting what is.
Yeah, it's right? True. Yeah.
And what is you're going to sag a little. So what? Mm-hmm. You're gonna get wrinkles. So what? Even if you're the most beautiful 70-year-old, you're still going to die and be worm food. Calm the fuck down, Crutchy.
Yeah.
You're making a big deal out of something. And so I hear people say to me, well, I'm perfectly okay with, whatever happens, and I'm perfectly okay with death and all. No, you're not. No, you're not. You can't be okay with death and have bulimia. I'm not putting people with bulimia down. I understand it's difficult. You have my absolute deepest heart, but you're not okay with that. If you have those things, why? Because it always comes back. That brain stem and that mesobrain is terrified of death.
Yeah.
That's where anxiety.
We're animals. We're animals. Yeah.
But we're not just. We are animals.
We are.
Animals. But the
That's
thing
right.
is, when you live in a constant state of, no, I want it to be this. No, I can't deal with that. The prefrontal cortex, the executive functions don't get formed.
Exactly.
Overdevelop the amygdala, which is fear and aggression. Overdevelop your reptilian brain, which is fighting, feeding, screwing, and fear. And so you just become hyper.
Do you think that's where our young people are at right now? Because no. Okay. So tell me more, because it does seem like there's, well, first of all, it just seems there's like a lot of fear porn anyway, everywhere. But yeah, it feels like when we're looking at the news or listening to people, that people are coming from, a very panicked, fearful place, which I think as you're listening to it, because you can feel yourself do this, where you're like, oh, I'm having a beautiful day. And then you listen to someone, then all of a sudden you're anxious or fearful, and you can feel that part of that reptilian brain, just being like lighting up and going, we're all going to die, So tell me what you think about that in terms of just our relationship to the world right now.
It's the same as it's always been. First it was, we're going to hell, John Calvin, man's natural man's enemy of God. You get the Inquisition. It's sex is a barely tolerable sin, and if you even think the word, you're going to die horribly. We've lived this way as a species.
So you're saying that religion plays upon the reptilian brain and the fear.
Well, not just religion, although yes, it's ideology, period.
Right.
And right now, but the 1960s were no different.
No.
Depression, no, because they were ideology too.
Yeah.
Right? They were ideologues. Anytime you put an idea, become an ideologue, an ideology, that always is going to surmount and usurp reality. Reality is you can literally do anything in this world you want if you could pull it off. That's the truth of it. You say, well, that's not fair. I don't care if it's fair. It's just real. There are baboons in Tanzania. They take about 3 hours a day to gather all their food requirements. And then for the rest of the 12 hours they're awake, they make each other's life perfectly fucking miserable every day, day in and day out. And the betas get their ass kicked, get their girls taken from them. The alphas do whatever they want. You say, but that's just an animal. I give you Monaco. I give you Fort Lauderdale. I give you Cancun. It still happens. But that's not fair. Just stop with the fair shit. It's what
do you think that we are, I'm going to use the word addicted again, but to drama, like, do you think that we need to have all this drama? Because that's,
yes.
Why do we need that?
Because otherwise life is extremely goddamn boring. That's why people don't stay in monasteries. I grew up in a monastery, and then I went to many monasteries, temples, ashrams, synagogues, mosques all throughout the world. And here's what I can tell you, whether it's the Carthusian Catholics that spend 20 hours a day in their cell, whether it's the Mevlevi out in Azerbaijan, it doesn't matter. The vast majority of people who enter those are there about 5 days. And then they're like, I'm the fuck out. I'm not sticking around. People think about Buddhist monasteries and like, oh, it's so holy. And you know what you get a lot in Buddhist monasteries? Whining.
I know. I've been there. It's like these people, they're so, talk about entitlement. It's like, oh, you made it, you coughed during my meditation and I lost my concentration.
I swear to God, it's the most annoying thing. Why? Because Descartes, Blaise Pascal, and Pythagoras, all mathematicians, all probably pasty virgins, although
Are you sure they were all pasty?
I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, guys, it's good bet. Good bet. I mean, Pythagoras was a Greek, so he might have bent over backwards to make sure people had a good time, but I don't know. That's just supposition.
Backwards or forwards?
You know what? Who am I to say?
Whatever.
No, but they all came to the same mathematical conclusion, which was all ills, doesn't matter what it is, but all ills in a person's life come down to one thing. You can't sit alone with yourself in a room.
Yeah.
And so the addiction is I need a relationship with something other than me. Now it can be with another
somebody
person,
that's going to make me more miserable than I make myself.
Or just somebody I can, make my scapegoat. I can cut their throat and put my sins on them, and I've got absolution, right? We've done this forever as a species. It's never not happened. But it ultimately comes down to, if you're a miserable ass, remember that misery doesn't love company, it demands it. And so I don't want to.
Wow, I've never heard that before. That's going to be a bumper sticker now.
Demands company. And so, right, let me give you an example with chimps. You'll see me, I talk about chimps a lot. We're not chimps, but we share a common ancestors.
Right.
And the mesobrain is very similar.
Yes.
So there was this chimp. This guy had a chimp, and it was his birthday, so he brings it a birthday cake. And these other chimps found out that he got a goddamn birthday cake, and they didn't. They killed that chimp with the birthday cake. They ripped the guy's genitals off, ripped his jaw off, and damn near beat him to death. Unfortunately, the guy lived. And why did that happen? Because monkeys don't like it when you get birthday cake, and they do. You get it, and they don't. And that's how humans are.
Yeah.
Because humans don't like it. It's the most petty thing in the world. Like, I'll talk to couples, and let's say the one gets a promotion. And then it's like, oh, we got a promotion. I'm so happy for him. It's like, are you? Tell me more about that. Say more about that. And then you find out, well, I mean, he's not as, committed to his job as I am, but I mean, obviously he's going to get. Monkeys hate. They did this really cool thing with two capuchin. They're the cutest damn monkeys. They had the one, and there's a hole in this plexiglass, and he's inside. And so the thing was, I'm going to put my hand out. You take a rock and put it into my hand, and I'll give you a treat. So the monkey takes the rock, puts it in the guy's hand. The guy gives him a cucumber slice. He eats the cucumber. He's so happy, so happy. Then he puts his hand out again, puts another rock, gets another cucumber. So happy. Oh my God, so happy. The second monkey, who's right next to the plexiglass, you can see through it, that researcher puts his hand out, puts a rock, hands him a grape. A juicy, red, delicious grape. This monkey's like, so he puts his hand out, puts a rock, he gives him the cucumber, takes a bite, throws it at him.
Oh my gosh.
And then he goes, puts his hand out, puts a rock in, gives him another cucumber, and he starts pounding on the goddamn, I want a grape. Humans. Now, people say, look, we're not like that. I'm a creationist. I don't believe in evolution. Great. So I went to this Fendi store one time over at the Galleria here.
Oh, jeez, yes. Oh my God. Okay, let's hear this.
And, there was a woman who came in and she was buying a wallet, but she had a Prada bag. And the woman was like, where did you get that bag? She's like, oh, I bought it over when I was in Europe. They don't have the bag. Like, how do I get a hold of it? It's like, that's only monkeys.
Yeah.
It's not people.
It's pretty hopeless what you're saying.
No, it's not. It's biology. What do you do? Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. Contribution. That's the antidote. I feel all the things everybody else feels. I don't act on any of them because I know that I give everything I have all day long. I have nothing left. I have 100 and some students on 5 continents. And I'm constantly dealing with them, and they're going through this and that and all these amazing things and all these things. By the end of the day, after raising 2 kids and doing my clients all day and all the other stuff I do, I just sit there and I look around. And I think, God, I'm so busy today. I think I missed a meal or whatever. But then I remember, so it's like, God, I feel like I have no time for myself. And then I remember, I also have no time to sit around in my goddamn anxieties and beating myself up. And
right.
It's not, your life's never been about you. That's the real trick and secret. Your life's not about you. You can experience it, but it's not about you. When you make your life about you, you're miserable as fuck, and everyone around you will be too. But
I remember Byron Katie said something about, someone was talking about, not getting somebody, somebody wasn't listening to them. And she said, oh, sweetheart, they don't have time. It was like, no, like everybody's very, they've got their own things that they're worried about. And we're like expecting the world to give us everything we want.
Yeah, you see it all the time. I most of my clients, especially the females, I'm not picking on them here, it's just that they happen to be the majority of what I saw in all my years of clinical practice. And I'll tell you, they terribly were afraid of what everybody was thinking of them.
Yeah.
Quite heartbreaking when I told them, sweetheart, no one's thinking of you.
I know. It's so true.
Thinking about what you're thinking of them. Their life is about them. They don't give a
like they farted in the room and they're thinking the rest of the time, all people can think about is my fart that I had or something like that. It's like, no.
No, nobody cares.
They're beyond that at this. Yeah.
No, but think about it.
It's not that important.
You take Genghis Khan, you take Alexander the Great, you take Napoleon. These people did real shit. Nobody gives a fuck now. Not a damn. So what are you doing in your life that's so magnanimous that you're going to eclipse them? And this is what I mean by, though, you become so egocentric that it's all what you think everything about you. No, Copernicus actually figured out that the world doesn't revolve around us. No, it doesn't. Nothing revolves around us except for our constant need for somebody else to meet our needs because we're incapable or uncooperative to meet our own needs. So
when you talk about contribution, we need to end because we've been talking for a long time and nobody wants to sit and listen to us talk for like forever. So hopefully people will listen to it because I think we got to some really juicy stuff at the end. But we talked about the reptilian brain. We didn't really speak about the mammalian brain, but we did talk about the frontal cortex. when you're making contribution, are you working other parts of your brain?
All of it. Yes, the highest need is contribution. The problem is you can't get contribution if you don't have certainty, variety, connection, significance, and growth. You can't. You have to have those, or else you can't contribute because it's about you. You know.
Right.
But
So
when
slow
you,
those down because people aren't going to have listened to every podcast. So,
oh,
yeah. So slow them down. Go ahead.
certainty, variety, connection, significance, growth, and contribution. Those are the 6 human needs, as put forth by Chloe Medanos, brilliant psychologist. And what you find with those needs is contribution is the highest of all the needs, because it's a real truth to say that when a person ultimately, even if they're the most selfish asshole on the planet, if they really want to get the most for themselves, they'll take care of everyone around them first, because thereby gaining the moral capital, the goodwill, all of those things, and then people want to do for you. When you live at people's expense, you're not contributing. It's usually those people are very fear-based and they need a lot of certainty, which is the opposite of the spectrum from certain contribution. But when you get a lot of when you're contributing, you realize you don't know when, you don't know how, but it'll come back. You're not doing it to come back. You just know that that's how it works. And so you got to put in. So there are times when I sit up and I'll listen to the missus talk and I'm just like, okay, I could give a shit less what she's saying. Half the time I don't even know what she's talking about, but she's a woman and she speaks really high and I'm a dumbass dude. So I don't know. But I know that she needs to talk because that's how her brain's wired. And so, okay. And then by the end of it, I'll ask questions. Okay, so how's that work? Okay, so what does that feel like? Okay, it's because I know that's what she cares about. And then that's where she's like, oh, I feel so great. Great. I mean, I don't really feel any different, but I'm glad you feel good. But now she can give her best self to my kids. She can give her best self to her family. She can give her best self. You see, I'm surrounded by people who are giving their best self.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to live in a world without assholes, I got to help people to become their best self.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yeah.
But so even if you're the most self-centered person, it's within your best interest to take care of other people and to contribute to their lives. Most people can't get that because they live in a deprivation mentality, which is very reptilian, which is, I'm going to get mine. I don't give a shit how you get yours. Mine. And that's that demanding childlike love.
Right.
Whereas that higher love, even if you don't get all the way up to inspired love, it's just that true love, you realize where I make my home is the quality of life I'm going to live. And some people say, well, if you're just going to die or whatever, like you said, then what does it matter? It's the quality of life until you get in that box. You can live a shitty quality if you stay demanding or if you stay bartering. You're going to have a much different experience in life.
Yeah.
You learn to make true love your home. I mean, you can get to that higher level if you choose, but if you make true love, I want to help you because that's who I am.
Right.
My actions are a mark on my character.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Dude, thank you. This was so great. I had such a good time. I know if we've actually, I think we started at 3 and it's 4:46 my time. And this is a long one, but it was really, really awesome. If I'm the only one that got to hear it, I loved it. Every minute of it.
Some people are listening to 3-hour podcasts regularly.
Totally. I know. I was noticing. I haven't really looked at some of the podcasts that we had, but I noticed they've got a lot of hits. So, it's great. It's great. These are all really excellent topics, and I would invite people who haven't listened to some of the other ones that we've done, especially the one on Han and Po, that you're referring to just go back and to hear that. It's a lot shorter than this one was, I can tell you that. But Lao, thank you. Thanks for taking time out of your very, very busy day with all of the hundreds of thousands of people that you're helping. You're amazing. So thank you. I love you too. All right.